The villain smiled from behind the crimson barrier, like a man unveiling the masterpiece of his entire miserable life. Blood-red formation lines burned across the stone courtyard. Talismans floated in the air, trembling with stolen power. Spiritual pressure pressed down so hard, the weaker disciples dropped to one knee. Inside the formation, swords rattled. Elders gritted their teeth. Disciples looked toward Li Chen, the Sect Master's eldest son, as if his calm alone could hold back death. Li Chen stood at the center of the crimson cage with one hand resting on his sword hilt, elegant and still, far too composed for a man trapped inside a murder circle. The villain laughed. This is the blood-sealed 8-direction locking formation. Once activated, no living creature can pass through its boundary. The formation flared brighter. Not a sword cultivator. A loyal elder struck the barrier. His blade rebounded with a crack. Not a spirit beast. A disciple threw a talisman. It burned to ash. The villain's smile sharpened. Not even a fly. On Li Chen's shoulder, the tiny black fly stopped cleaning her front legs. Very slowly, Lin Dan turned all 6 feet toward the barrier. Somewhere deep inside her tiny, furious soul, the woman who used to be Linda said one word.
Bet.
Li Chen felt the slight shift of her weight. Without looking away from the villain, he lowered his sleeve. An elder beside him stared. Young Master Li, what are you doing? Li Chen answered calmly.
Opening a path.
The elder looked at his sleeve. With what? Li Chen's expression did not change.
Lin Dan.
The villain stared. Then he laughed so hard the formation trembled. You think a fly can break my formation? Li Chen looked him straight in the eyes.
No.
The fly lifted off his sleeve.
I think she took that personally.
But before Lin Dan became the only fly in cultivation history to personally offend a blood formation, she had been an ordinary woman named Linda, and Linda had made one very unfortunate joke. Linda's appendix burst on her younger sister's birthday, which, according to her family, was inconvenient. Not tragic or alarming, just inconvenient. The house was full of pastel balloons, gift bags, and relatives who had not spoken to Linda in months, but still felt qualified to ask whether she was doing anything with her life yet. Her younger sister, Melissa, sat at the center of the dining room, wearing a glittering birthday crown their mother insisted was adorable. Melissa was 21. Old enough to vote, drink, and pretend she liked office meetings, but their mother still treated every birthday like a royal coronation. And Linda had learned long ago that on Melissa's birthday, the sun rose for Melissa, the cake was frosted for Melissa, and everyone else was expected to orbit politely. Linda tried. She helped set up decorations. She carried paper plates from the kitchen. She smiled when relatives joked that she was still the quiet one. Then the pain started. At first, it was only a dull ache near her stomach, annoying but manageable. Then it sharpened and twisted. Before long, it felt like something inside her had grabbed a knife and started carving its initials into her organs. Linda pressed a hand to her side and leaned against the kitchen counter. Her mother glanced over while adjusting the cake candles. Linda, don't hover. You're making the kitchen look crowded.
I don't feel good.
Linda said. Her mother sighed, that sigh. The one that meant Linda had already lost the argument before she finished speaking. Not today, honey. Please. It's your sister's birthday. Linda swallowed.
No, Mom. I really don't feel good. My side hurts.
Her mother turned the cake slightly to center the frosting flowers. You probably ate too much greasy food yesterday. Drink water.
Mom.
Linda, I am trying to get the cake ready. A cousin called from the living room, asking where the napkins were. Her mother walked away. The pain worsened. Linda found her father near the back door, laughing with her uncle about golf, weather, and whatever else grown men used to avoid emotional labor.
Dad?
She said quietly. He turned with a party smile. What's up?
My side hurts really bad. I think something's wrong.
His smile dimmed, but only slightly. Did you tell your mother?
She said to drink water.
Then drink water.
Dad?
He rubbed his forehead. Linda, please. Can we not do this right now? Your sister only gets one birthday a year. Linda stared at him. Pain pulsed through her abdomen.
I'm not trying to ruin anything.
I didn't say you were. But his face said he was tired. His voice said he had decided this was drama. His body had already turned halfway back toward the conversation. So, Linda left him there. Her older brother, Mark, was by the dining room doorway, scrolling on his phone. She touched his arm.
Mark,
He looked up. What?
I think I need to go to the hospital.
That got his attention. For one brief, wonderful second, he actually looked at her, not past her, not through her, at her. You look pale.
I feel like something's tearing.
His brow furrowed. Then the dining room erupted. Mom had entered with the cake. Everyone started singing. Their mother waved urgently. Mark, come on, we're doing candles. Mark hesitated. Linda held her breath. He looked from her to the dining room, then back. Sit down for a minute, he said. I'll check on you after. Then he went to sing. Linda stood alone in the hallway while her family cheered. By the time anyone checked on her, she was on the bathroom floor. By the time they called an ambulance, she had stopped being able to answer questions clearly. By the time the doctors took her seriously, her body had already become a battlefield that was losing. The hospital smelled like sanitizer, plastic, and fear. Linda drifted in and out of consciousness. Sometimes she saw white ceiling tiles. Other times, she saw her mother crying. Then she heard machines, or nothing at all. Near the end, voices gathered outside her room. The doctor's voice was low, controlled, angry in the way professional people got angry when rage had to wear a clean coat. She wasn't being dramatic, the doctor said. Linda's eyes moved beneath heavy lids. Her mother made a sound. A sob, maybe? A denial? Linda wanted to hear it. Her appendix ruptured, the doctor continued. By the time she arrived, the infection had already spread. If she had been brought in when symptoms began, we might have had time. Silence. Linda wanted to hear the rest. She wanted to know if her mother made excuses. She wanted to know if her father finally said her name like it mattered. She wanted to know if Mark remembered the way she had looked at him and asked for help. She wanted to know if anyone finally understood that she had not been trying to steal attention. She had been trying to stay alive. But the room was getting brighter. Her hearing thinned. The pain softened into distance. Somewhere beyond the ceiling, light opened like a door. Linda thought, with a tired ache deeper than her body,
Maybe in the next life, I'll have someone who actually cares.
Then, as the voices blurred beyond the wall, one last bitter little flicker of humor passed through her mind.
What I wouldn't pay to be a fly on the wall for that conversation.
Something ancient, vast, and apparently terrible at nuance replied, payment accepted. Linda woke up, with 6 legs. This was her first clue that the afterlife had staffing problems. Her second clue was the wall. She was stuck to it, not leaning against it or pressed beside it. Nope, stuck to it. Her body clung to the vertical surface with horrifying ease, and her vision was wrong. The world fractured into hundreds of tiny pieces, each angle overlapping the next until the room looked like reality had been shattered and badly reassembled by someone with a grudge. Linda tried to scream. What came out was, bzzz. She froze, then tried again. Bzzz.
Oh no.
She looked at her body, her tiny black body with transparent wings and 6 spindly legs, 2 of which twitched with an urge to rub together like a villain after coming up with a wicked plan. She found that rather insulting. Then her soul, or whatever part of her remained capable of outrage, inhaled.
I know I said what I wouldn't pay to be a fly on the wall for that conversation, but I am not listening in on said conversation. And this is ridiculous.
Below her, 2 men stood beside a lacquered table. They wore long robes, jade pendants on their belts, and expressions that suggested they had never once taken responsibility for anything that happened near them. The room was beautiful, in the dramatic way expensive fantasy rooms tended to be. Silk screens, carved windows, floating lamps, and...
Are those scrolls and incense?
Linda stared.
Where am I?
One of the men lowered his voice. The poison will be placed in the lotus rice during the 3rd course. Linda's tiny body went rigid. The other man nodded. The young master favors lotus rice. He will not suspect it. Young master. Poison? 3rd course. Linda slowly turned her head toward the ceiling.
Absolutely not.
The first man continued. Once Li Chen is dead, the Sect Master will have no proper successor. The council will fracture. Elder Zhao will move then. Linda closed all of her many, many eyes. Or, at least tried to, but apparently flies did not blink properly. Or, maybe it was just her.
I just died. I have legs I did not consent to. I am not emotionally available for political assassination.
Below her, the murder planning continued. Poison type, timing, servant route. Who would take the blame and who would benefit? Linda tried to crawl away. She made it 6 inches and paused. The men kept talking. She made it another 4 inches when they got to the part where Li Chen would suffer slowly, enough to make the death seem like a cultivation deviation. Linda stopped. A false illness, a hidden truth, a body failing while everyone believed the wrong explanation. The wall felt cold beneath her feet. Something old and raw twisted inside her. She had told people something was wrong. No one listened. Now she was a fly, the most ignorable creature in any world. And she had just heard someone planning to murder a man who did not even know danger was coming. Linda rubbed her front legs together, hated that it felt natural, and turned back toward the room.
Fine, but I am filing a complaint with the universe.
Linda learned several things in her first hour as a fly. First, the cultivation world was beautiful. Second, the cultivation world was insane. Third, being a fly in a cultivation world was apparently not the same as being a normal fly. For one thing, her eyes could see more than shape and motion. When she looked at the table, faint threads of light ran through the wood. When she looked at the incense, she saw pale smoke curled with tiny blue sparks. When one of the conspirators opened a small porcelain vial, black-green vapor leaked from it like rot wearing perfume. Poison. She knew it instantly. Not because someone told her, and most certainly not because she understood cultivation, but because her new body saw it the way a human nose smelled smoke. That was useful. Horrifying, yes, but useful nonetheless. She crawled along the wall and found a crack near the ceiling. Spiritual dust gathered there in glittering clumps. Her body reacted before her mind caught up, and she absorbed a speck. Warmth flooded her tiny body, and a strange pulse moved through her wings. A message did not appear, no system voice or little blue screen like the stories, just instinct, absorption, refinement, and growth. Linda stared at the dust.
Am I cultivating from wall grime?
She took another speck. More warmth. Her wings vibrated and the air around her trembled faintly. Linda had no mouth capable of sighing, which was probably for the best, because the sound would have felt ancient.
Fine. If I'm going to be a dumpster diving immortal, I'm going to be the best there is.
She spent the day learning. Her tiny feet could cling to anything. Her wings could vibrate with strange spiritual resonance, and her compound eyes could detect poison, chi flow, talisman threads, and lies if the liar happened to sweat spiritual residue. She could slip through window cracks, formation gaps, and places no proud cultivator would ever think to check. Nobody noticed her. Servants waved her away. Disciples ignored her. Elders sneered if she came near and muttered about poor cleaning standards. Linda discovered that in this world, power lived in swords, pills, beasts, bloodlines, and ancient manuals. No one had prepared for a fly with unresolved emotional trauma. Rookie mistake. The banquet was held in a grand hall with polished floors, carved pillars, and enough hidden resentment to season every dish. Linda perched high on a beam and watched the room below. Sect elders sat in ranked seats. Inner disciples served wine. Musicians played soft melodies that did absolutely nothing to conceal the fact that half the people in the room were smiling with their teeth and plotting with their eyes. Then Li Chen entered. Linda knew it had to be him. No one else could have walked into a room full of political snakes and made the snakes look nervous. He was young, maybe in his early 20s, with long black hair tied in a silver clasp, pale robes embroidered with cloud patterns, and a face so composed it felt carved rather than born. Beautiful. And also walking directly toward poisoned rice. Linda clicked her tiny legs against the beam.
Of course he's pretty. The universe would not waste assassination attempts on someone boring.
Li Chen greeted the elders with perfect courtesy and sat. Servants brought the courses. Linda watched every dish. Soup, clean. Pickled roots, clean. Tea, mildly suspicious, but not deadly. Then the lotus rice arrived. Black-green vapor curled from the grains, invisible to everyone else, but blatantly obvious to her. Linda launched herself from the beam. Flying as a new fly was not elegant. It involved too much body and not enough steering. She zigzagged through the hall like a drunk punctuation mark and landed directly on the rim of Li Chen's bowl. A servant gasped. A fly! Linda stomped both front legs on the bowl. Li Chen's chopsticks paused. The servant reached to swat her. Linda darted away, then landed again. "Forgive me, young master," the servant said, horrified. "This lowly one will remove the filthy creature." The word filthy hit harder than it should have. Linda froze. Li Chen raised one hand and the servant stopped. Li Chen looked at the fly. His gaze was sharp, not disgusted or dismissive, but curious. Linda buzzed as she ran in a frantic circle around the edge of the bowl. Li Chen watched. She flew to the other dishes, did nothing, then returned to the lotus rice and stomped about. Flew to the tea, did nothing, returned to the rice and stomped about harder. One elder laughed softly. "Young Master Li, perhaps the fly has better taste than the cook's." Li Chen did not smile. He set down his chopsticks.
Test the rice.
The hall went quiet. The servant paled. "Young master?" Li Chen's voice remained calm.
Test it.
A poison-testing needle was brought. The silver darkened almost instantly. The hall exploded. Servants cried out. Disciples drew swords, and elders exchanged looks that were far too controlled to be innocent. Linda stood on the table rim with all the dignity of a creature who had nearly become garnish.
Finally, a man with pattern recognition.
Li Chen's eyes returned to her. For a moment, the chaos around them dimmed. He looked at the tiny fly. The fly looked back with several hundred lenses and one very tired soul. Then Linda lifted one front leg, pointed it at the rice, and stomped again. Li Chen's mouth almost curved. Almost.
Interesting,
He said. Linda buzzed once.
You have no idea.
Linda decided to leave after that. She really did. She had done her civic duty, saved one beautiful murder target, and prevented one poisoning. Excellent work. Time to find a nice crack in a wall, cultivate dust, and process the fact that she was now a bug. Unfortunately, Li Chen continued existing, and people continued trying to kill him. Linda learned this because apparently nobody in the sect understood indoor voices. Two disciples whispered near the training grounds about bribed guards. An elder muttered into a communication talisman about succession instability. A servant carried a powder sachet that glowed with the same black-green poison vapor. And Li Chen walked through all of it with the serene expression of a man accustomed to danger. Linda decided to follow him for a day or two, which soon turned into more. Only temporarily, or so she kept telling herself. A temporary protective arrangement. It was supposed to be a short-term, pest-based security contract with no emotional attachment involved. She watched him from beams, screens, windowsills, and once from the rim of a teacup, which, if it had been anyone else, would have been dangerous because there was a chance they'd accidentally swallow her. But not with Li Chen. He noticed her every time, not loudly or dramatically, but his gaze would always flick to her, and he'd pause for a fraction of a second before he continued on as if nothing were amiss. On the 7th day, he placed 2 drops of tea on his desk, one plain, one laced with trace spiritual contamination. Linda landed beside the poisoned one and stomped. Li Chen's eyes narrowed slightly. The next day, he placed 2 folded papers side by side, one clean, one marked with a tracking talisman so faint even most disciples would miss it. Linda landed on the marked one and dragged her legs across it with deep disgust. Li Chen watched.
Can you understand me?
Linda froze, then buzzed once. His gaze sharpened.
1 buzz for yes,
Linda buzzed once again.
2 for no.
Linda buzzed twice. For the first time, Li Chen smiled. It was tiny, barely there, but it changed his whole face. Linda stared.
Oh no, he's pretty when he smiles. This is a problem.
Li Chen leaned closer.
You saved me at the banquet.
Linda buzzed once.
You knew the rice was poisoned.
Buzz.
You have followed me since.
Linda paused, then buzzed once, very reluctantly. Li Chen's expression softened by the smallest degree.
Why?
Linda stared at him.
I don't know. Because you're surrounded by assassins. Because everyone here smiles like knives. Because I know what it feels like to warn people and not be heard. Because you listened. Because someone should care if you live.
But she was a fly, so she buzzed. Li Chen studied her, then said quietly,
I see.
Linda rubbed her front legs together.
No, you do not, but thank you for pretending respectfully.
From that day onward, Li Chen stopped treating her like a strange insect that happened to be useful. He treated her like a strange insect that happened to be intelligent, which was progress. Disturbing progress, but progress nonetheless. He began leaving tiny drops of spiritual honey near his inkstone. Linda refused to drink them while he watched, but drank them when he looked away. He did not comment. Because Li Chen, unlike the rest of the sect, had survival instincts. When servants tried to swat her, he stopped them. When the disciples stared at her, he ignored them. When an elder made a comment about the young master's unusual new habit of keeping company with pests, Li Chen merely looked at him until the elder remembered an urgent matter elsewhere. Linda found this satisfying and slightly inconvenient, because it was getting harder to pretend she was not staying. The second assassination attempt came on a rainy night. Linda was perched on the edge of Li Chen's desk, pretending not to enjoy the tiny drop of spiritual honey he had left for her on a porcelain chip. Pretending was important. Dignity had to be maintained, even when one was six-legged and drinking dessert from dishware smaller than a fingernail. Li Chen sat nearby, reading reports beneath the soft glow of a spirit lamp, or pretending to read. His hand had not turned the page in 10 minutes. Linda noticed. She also noticed the faint crease between his brows, the slight tension in his fingers, and the way his gaze kept returning to the window. Not because he had heard something, but because men who survived too many assassination attempts eventually learned to distrust silence. Good. At least one of them was developing survival instincts. She dipped her front legs into the honey, tasted it, and immediately forgave him for being emotionally constipated, temporarily. Then she heard voices beneath the window, soft, careful, and potentially deadly. A servant and a masked cultivator stood beneath the eaves, hidden by rain and shadow. "The incense is prepared," the servant whispered. "Once lit, his senses will dull within half a quarter hour. And the guard? Bribed? The window latch? Loose. Good. During the third watch, he dies." Linda went still as the masked cultivator continued. "The blade must strike the throat, quick enough to prevent alarm, messy enough to suggest demonic backlash." Linda shot away from the honey. Bzzz! Li Chen looked up immediately, not annoyed or confused, but alert.
What is it?
Linda flew to the window, back to him, then to the incense burner, and back to him again. Li Chen stood, his expression sharpened.
Danger?
One buzz. His hand moved toward his sword.
Now?
2 buzzes. He paused.
Later.
1 buzz. Linda darted to the window again, then to his sleeping mat, then to the incense burner. Li Chen followed every movement.
Window. Bed. Incense.
1 buzz. His eyes narrowed.
An assassination attempt?
1 buzz so hard her whole body vibrated. He understood the shape of it, but not the details or timing, nor the bribed guard or going for the throat. He didn't have all the information he'd need, and for the first time in this new life, Linda really wanted hands, or a voice, magical pen. Anything. Then she saw the red ink. It sat open on his desk beside a half-finished letter. Linda stared at it, then at Li Chen and the paper. Li Chen followed her gaze.
Can you show me?
Linda froze. For one small, dangerous second, the room became a hospital again. Her trying to explain. People looked at her and decided she was making noise instead of meaning. But Li Chen had asked, not dismissed. He wanted to listen. So Linda dove into the red ink. It was cold and sticky and immediately horrible. She dragged herself out with red-stained legs and landed on the paper. Line from the window, dots near the incense burner, slash across the sleeping mat. 3 small marks beside the door for the bribed guard, another line for the third watch, and a frantic circle around the place where Li Chen's throat would be. She crawled until the paper looked like a crime scene, drawn by a very angry insect with a limited stationary budget. Li Chen did not interrupt. He watched. When she finished, Linda stood at the edge of the paper, legs stained red and body trembling with effort. Li Chen lowered his gaze. At first glance, the marks were nonsense. A servant would have thrown the page away. An elder would have called it filth, but Li Chen did not. His eyes tracked the red line from the window, the dots near the incense burner, the marks beside the door, and the slash across the sleeping mat. His face went cold.
Window entry. Drugged incense. Bribed guard.
Linda buzzed once.
Third watch.
Another buzz.
A blade to the throat.
One buzz. Li Chen's hand closed around his sword.
I understand.
Those two words nearly broke her, not loudly or dramatically, but somewhere deep inside the part of Linda that had died, listening to a doctor explain what no one had believed. Something shifted. He understood. He believed her. Li Chen extended one finger. After a suspicious pause, Linda climbed onto it. He lifted her carefully, studying the red ink staining her tiny legs.
You used red ink to warn me.
Linda cleaned one leg, then stopped because it tasted like ink and regret. Li Chen's thumb curved slightly, shielding her from the draft.
You need a name.
Linda froze.
I have a name.
He looked at the red marks, then at her.
Lin Dan.
Linda went completely still.
Excuse me. My name is Linda. Linda. You were one letter away, you beautifully dense assassination magnet.
Li Chen's voice softened.
You saved me from poison. You warned me of the blade. You appear whenever death reaches for me.
His gaze rested on her with solemn certainty.
You're my lucky star.
Linda froze. For one terrible second, she was not standing on his finger. She was back in a hospital bed, listening to people cry too late. She remembered what she had thought as she had headed toward the light.
Maybe in the next life, I'll have someone who actually cares.
She looked at Li Chen, this strange, lonely, elegant man who had already believed her once, who had watched her warning and, instead of brushing it off, asked her to show him what she meant. The man who said she mattered without knowing how badly she needed to hear it. Linda's tiny body trembled, then she became immediately irritated.
No, do not say something that tender while I am covered in ink and trauma.
Li Chen placed her gently on his shoulder.
Stay with me, Lin Dan.
Linda considered biting him, but his offer included shelter, food, and access to every suspicious conversation in the sect. Also, he was pretty, which, truth be told, had been a major factor in all of her decisions pertaining to the young master. And this was how Linda became Lin Dan. Not because Li Chen discovered she was intelligent, he already knew that, but because on a rainy night, with red ink on her feet and murder at his window, he became the first person in either lifetime to look at her warning and say, I understand. Well, that, and he was eye candy. But she would deny such a shallow factor, having ever held sway over any of her decisions. Her bestie in her last life would quickly prove otherwise, but she was worlds away, so Linda had no worries about being contradicted. Li Chen kept his word. The next morning, a tiny jade box appeared on his desk. It was lined with soft silk. Beside it sat a drop of spiritual honey on a ceramic plate the size of a fingernail. Linda stared.
Seriously?
Li Chen sat nearby, reading reports.
You dislike it?
Linda did not move.
It is clean.
No response.
Protected.
Still no response.
Private.
Linda flew into the box. Li Chen's mouth curved faintly. Linda immediately came back out.
Don't look smug. I was inspecting it.
From that day onward, Lin Dan had a place in Li Chen's room. She also had a place on his shoulder, sometimes his sleeve, occasionally his hair, though he seemed to find that less dignified. The servants were horrified. Young master, one whispered, shall this servant remove the insect? Li Chen looked at him.
No, Lin Dan stays.
The servant's face twitched. The fly has a name? Li Chen turned a page.
Yes.
A pause. Honored young master, respectfully, it is a pest. Li Chen looked up.
So are most assassins, yet you keep letting them inside.
The servant went pale. Linda cleaned her front legs.
Okay, that was good.
She would allow the jade box, for now. News spread quickly. The Sect Master's son had adopted a fly. At first, people laughed. Quietly, of course, no one wanted Li Chen to hear them. Then, a strange thing happened. The fly began exposing people. During a council meeting, an elder spoke at great length about loyalty. Lin Dan flew across the room and landed directly on his head. Li Chen looked at him for one long moment.
Search his storage ring.
The elder sputtered. You dare accuse me because of a fly? Li Chen said.
Yes.
Inside the ring were forged orders, poison powder, and a payment token from an outside faction. The laughter stopped. The next week, a servant entered Li Chen's courtyard carrying clean robes. Lin Dan landed on the left sleeve and stomped until Li Chen checked the embroidery. A tracking talisman had been hidden inside the thread. The whispers changed. Why does the young master have a fly? Became, why does the fly have a name? Then, why did the fly expose forged documents? Then, Why is the fly judging me? By the time Lin Dan led Li Chen to a hidden chamber behind a medicine cabinet, most of the sect had stopped trying to understand and started trying not to offend her. Inside the chamber were forbidden blood talismans, spirit beast bone fragments, poison vials, and formation diagrams. Li Chen looked at the evidence for a long time. Then he said,
He is preparing something large.
Linda buzzed once. Li Chen's gaze lowered to her.
You have done enough. You do not need to risk yourself.
Linda stared at him. The words should have felt comforting. Instead, they annoyed her. Because of course she did not need to. She had not needed to save him the first time, or the second, or the fifth. She had not needed to care about one lonely young master in a sect full of silk-wrapped murder attempts. But she did. Which was deeply inconvenient, but she dealt with it. She flew from his finger to his shoulder and stomped once. Li Chen understood.
As you wish.
The message arrived at dusk, a border alarm. Enemy spies had been seen near the Western Formation field. Several loyal disciples were already missing. The report bore the correct seal, the correct brush pressure, the correct emergency cipher. It was perfect. A little too perfect. Linda landed on the paper and circled. Li Chen's eyes narrowed.
You think it's a trap.
One buzz.
Do you know where?
Linda landed on the words Western Formation field. Li Chen nodded.
Then we go prepared.
Linda buzzed twice. No. Li Chen's expression softened.
If we do not go, and there are disciples trapped there, they die.
Linda hated that he was right. She hated more that he knew she knew. So Li Chen went, but not alone. He brought 2 loyal elders, a handful of trusted disciples, hidden antidotes, formation-breaking talismans, and Lin Dan on his shoulder. The Western Formation field sat beneath jagged cliffs, its stones etched with old training arrays. At night, the place looked abandoned, still without the presence of insects, birds, or even wind. Linda's compound eyes caught red threads beneath the ground, blood ink, forbidden talisman knots, and buried spirit beast bone. The whole field was a mouth waiting to close. She buzzed sharply. Li Chen's hand went to his sword, but it was too late. The ground ignited. Crimson lines burst across the stone courtyard, and talismans rose from beneath the earth. Spiritual pressure slammed down. The disciples staggered. One elder coughed blood. A red barrier sealed around them. Outside it, Elder Zhao stepped from the shadows. His robes were immaculate. His smile was not. Li Chen, he said, you have survived far longer than expected. Li Chen drew his sword.
Elder Zhao.
Still so calm. Zhao laughed softly. I wonder if that calm will remain when your bones are dust. Li Chen said nothing. Elder Zhao lifted both hands and the formation blazed brighter. This is the blood-sealed 8-direction locking formation. I spent 10 years preparing it. Once activated, no living creature can pass through its boundary. He turned slightly, enjoying the fear on the disciples' faces. No sword can cut it. A loyal elder struck the barrier. His sword rebounded, cracking. No talisman can pierce it. A disciple threw a golden charm. It burned to ash. No beast can tear it. The pressure increased, and Elder Zhao smiled. Not even a fly could escape. On Li Chen's shoulder, Lin Dan stopped cleaning her legs. The courtyard went very still as Linda turned toward Elder Zhao.
Bet.
Li Chen felt the slight shift of her weight. Without looking away from the villain, he lowered his sleeve. An elder beside him stared. Young Master Li, what are you doing? Li Chen answered calmly.
Opening a path.
The elder looked at his sleeve. With what? Li Chen's expression did not change.
Lin Dan.
Even trapped inside his own killing formation, Elder Zhao laughed. It was not controlled this time. It was ugly. You think a fly can break my formation? Li Chen's face remained calm.
No.
Lin Dan stepped onto his sleeve.
I think she took that personally.
Linda launched herself into the air. To everyone else, the formation looked whole, a perfect crimson prison. To Lin Dan, it was a net of arrogance. Chi threads knotted too tightly near the northwestern point, while one blood talisman pulsed half a breath slower than the others. The seal had been drawn by a steady hand, but the final stroke was too thick. A human would never fit through the gap. A sword's chi would trigger backlash, while a spirit beast's aura would be crushed. But Linda was a fly, a cultivating fly, a very offended cultivating fly. She flew toward the barrier, and Elder Zhao's laughter faltered. The red light met her body. For one terrible moment, pressure squeezed her wings. Pain flashed for a brief moment before her tiny body slipped through the seam and outside the barrier. Elder Zhao went silent as Linda landed on the flawed talisman. It smelled like blood, ash, and smugness.
You spent 10 years on this? Embarrassing.
She pressed her front legs to the final stroke. Buzzing Dao vibrated through her wings. Her tiny chi pulsed. Once, twice. The talisman flickered. Inside the formation, Li Chen raised his sword as Linda scratched through the thick final stroke. The formation made a sound like a heavenly guqin being thrown down a staircase. Every crimson line shuddered. Li Chen said,
"Now."
The loyal elders struck as the disciples poured their chi into the weakened point. Li Chen's sword cut through the crack Lin Dan had made, and the formation shattered. Crimson light exploded outward. Disciples stumbled free. Elders lunged through. Li Chen stepped from the collapsing array with his robes untouched, and his gaze cold enough to freeze blood. Elder Zhao staggered back. "No," he whispered. "Impossible." Lin Dan lifted off the ruined talisman. She flew toward him, slowly, deliberately. Less like an insect, and more like an auditor. Elder Zhao froze when Linda landed directly on his nose. The battlefield went silent, and Elder Zhao's eyes crossed. Lin Dan stared into his soul with several hundred tiny lenses, and the full moral weight of a woman who had been personally insulted by poor workmanship.
Not even a fly?
She rubbed her front legs together.
Say it again. I dare you.
Lin Dan, return.
What am I, a Pokemon?
Linda tapped Elder Zhao's nose once, a tiny final judgment, and returned back to Li Chen's shoulder. Li Chen looked at Elder Zhao.
You should apologize.
Linda cleaned one leg.
And mean it.
Once the formation broke, Elder Zhao's perfection collapsed with it. The shattered talisman scattered across the field. Forbidden blood ink stained the stones, and spirit beast bone fragments rolled from the broken array points. One disciple found assassin tokens hidden under the southern seal. Another found letters bearing forged orders. Elder Song opened a storage pouch taken from Zhao's sleeve and pulled out the same poison used in Li Chen's lotus rice. The night went very quiet. Elder Zhao tried anyway. Because villains, Linda had learned, often confuse denial with strategy. "This proves nothing," he snapped. "You cannot accuse me based on broken talismans and a beast's behavior." Linda flew off Li Chen's shoulder. She landed on the poison vial, then on Elder Zhao, flew to the forged orders, then landed on Elder Zhao before she hopped over to the blood talisman, and back to Elder Zhao's forehead. The disciples watched. Elder Song said slowly, "The creature is identifying linked evidence." Linda paused.
The creature has a name, Grandpa's sword robe.
Her name is Lin Dan.
Li Chen stated, and Elder Song coughed. Lin Dan is identifying linked evidence. Linda buzzed once.
Better.
Elder Zhao's face twisted. "You would trust an insect over an elder of the sect?" Li Chen stepped forward.
No.
His sword tip lowered to the ground.
I trust the one who warned me when you poisoned my food.
Zhao's face went pale.
The one who warned me when your assassin came through my window.
The disciples shifted.
The one who led me to your hidden talisman chamber.
Li Chen's gaze sharpened.
And the one who broke the formation you claimed not even a fly could escape.
Linda cleaned her front legs.
Clown behavior? Documented.
Elder Zhao reached for a hidden talisman. Linda saw the chi flare and darted forward to smack into his wrist. It did absolutely no physical damage, but her buzzing Dao disrupted the talisman just enough. It misfired. Smoke exploded in Elder Zhao's own sleeve, and he shrieked. Li Chen moved. One strike with the flat of the blade, and Elder Zhao hit the ground unconscious. The courtyard exhaled. By dawn, the western formation field was full of disciples, elders, guards, and whispers. Sect Master Li arrived with a storm in his eyes. He was an older version of Li Chen, broader, with silver at his temples, and the kind of presence that made people remember breathing was optional. He listened to the reports, the poison, the forged orders, the hidden chamber, the blood formation, the fly. At the last part, his gaze shifted to Li Chen's shoulder. Linda stood there, very still. She did not like powerful old cultivators looking at her. It felt like being inspected by a mountain. Even so, when Sect Master Li stared, Linda stared back. Finally, he said, "This is Lin Dan?" Li Chen bowed.
Yes, Father.
The fly.
Yes.
The one who exposed Zhao's plot.
Yes.
The one you called your lucky star. Linda's soul tried to leave her body. Again. Li Chen did not even blink.
Yes.
Sect Master Li was silent for a long moment. Then one elder, apparently born without survival instincts, stepped forward. Sect Master, with respect, perhaps the creature merely acted by instinct. Young Master Li's interpretation may be colored by recent danger. Linda went cold, merely instinct. Being dramatic. Attention-seeking. A pest. A creature. A thing to ignore until the damage was done. Li Chen's expression changed, only slightly, but the temperature of the courtyard dropped.
No.
The elder stiffened and Li Chen lifted his hand. Linda hesitated, then flew from his shoulder and landed on his finger. He held her gently, openly, where everyone could see.
She warned me when no one else did. She acted when others hesitated. She saw what everyone ignored.
His gaze swept across the gathered sect.
In this sect, we will not make the mistake of dismissing her again.
Linda froze. He didn't know about the birthday party, the bathroom floor, the hospital room, and the doctor outside the wall. He did not know her last human wish had been for someone to care. He did not know those words had landed directly on the cracked place inside her. That made it worse. Better? Both? For a moment, Linda could not move. Then she stepped forward on his finger and tapped his skin once. Li Chen looked down, his expression softened. Sect Master Li watched them. Then he turned to the crowd. From this day onward, no one is to harm Lin Dan. The disciples, elders, and servants all stared. Sect Master Li continued. She is under the protection of the Sect Master's household. A pause. And should any person insult, swat, poison, trap, or otherwise offend her without cause, they may explain themselves to me. Linda lifted one front leg.
Acceptable.
Whispers erupted. By noon, half the sect was calling her Lucky Star Lin Dan. By evening, someone had tried to bow to her and nearly dislocated their dignity. By the next morning, 3 outer disciples were arguing over whether her official title should be Tiny Guardian of the Young Master, Inspector Lin, or Eavesdropping Immortal. Linda hated the last one.
I was not eavesdropping. You people keep confessing crimes near windows.
That night, Li Chen sat alone in his room. The rain had stopped and the window was open. Cool air moved through the curtains. Linda rested on the edge of his desk beside her tiny jade box. A fresh drop of spiritual honey waited on its tiny plate. Li Chen did not read or write like he usually did. He simply sat in silence, looking at the moonlight on the floor. Linda watched him. He looked younger when no one was demanding strength from him. Not weak. No, never weak. Just tired. Finally, he spoke.
Before you, I did not know who to trust.
Linda stilled. Li Chen's voice remained quiet.
Everyone near me had a reason. Ambition, fear, loyalty to my father, hatred of my father, desire for power, desire for safety.
He looked at her.
You had no reason.
Linda's wings twitched.
You could have left after the banquet.
She looked away.
You stayed.
Because you were in danger and you listened. Because someone should care and, perhaps, I was hoping someone would care back.
Li Chen extended his hand. He did not command or assume. He simply offered. Linda stared at his finger for a moment. Then she flew to him. Not his sleeve or his shoulder. His finger. A small thing, sure, but she was small now. Small things mattered. Li Chen smiled faintly.
Stay with me, Lin Dan.
Linda stood on his finger, feeling the warmth of his skin through her tiny feet.
I am still Linda.
Outside, rainwater dripped from the eaves. The room smelled faintly of ink, silk, and spiritual honey. Linda rubbed her front legs together.
But fine.
Li Chen's smile deepened by a fraction, as if somehow, impossibly, he understood. Linda had died unheard. Lin Dan became the smallest voice in the room, and somehow, impossibly, hilariously, the right person listened. Of course, she was still a fly. Healing was complicated like that. But 3 days later, when a minor villain leaned too close to a window and whispered the word, poison, Lin Dan froze mid-leg clean. Then she slowly turned toward him. Her wings buzzed once, and her tiny feet rubbed together. Somewhere inside the sect, Li Chen looked up from his tea, already reaching for his sword. In her past life, Linda had been accused of being dramatic. In this life, Lin Dan was going to be dramatic on purpose.
Like the story? Join the Chaotic Novel Club. We meet up every week See you in the next book. Nibs out.